Okay. Well, first of all, back to next on the mic, and I'm so excited to have this amazing young man, Mr. D. Watkins, and it's an honor to have you on my platform. You're the New York Times bestseller, author books of the B side, the B side, Living and Dying in America. Actually, I've read that book. It's an amazing book. Cook Up. We speak for ourselves. A word from the forgotten America. And I'm actually reading that book right now. And you have a recent book, Black Boy Smiles, a memoir of in the moment. And you also are the critically acclaimed author of The Wire, and that is what people they kind of like put Baltimore together with that.
Book. I wrote the 20-year retro. I didn't work on the show. I
You
wrote
wrote, but you wrote the book. Yeah, the book. Is it the book?
book and I did I wrote I co-wrote We Own the City with George Pelicanos.
Okay, thank you for that correction.
No, it's all good because I don't I don't tell anybody that that I wrote the line and then they they I don't want to take anybody else's praise.
Thank you for that. But the movie that you did make, what We Run the City, is that We Own the City?
We Own the City. It's a 6-part HBO miniseries based on the book by Justin Fenton.
Yeah, I've seen that one also, and you have some officers in that show that I know
That's
personally.
really important to the crew. Like for like all of
Yeah.
us, the conversation. This was like a real conversation we had behind closed doors. It's like, yo, we want to include people in the street. We want to include victims of police brutality, but then we also want to include people who work in law enforcement as well because we're trying to tell a whole story.
Good for you.
We weren't trying to sweep in and just have anything be one sided. We wanted to tell the whole thing, and we tried to do that.
I'm happy that you did that because the people that you have on there, I know personally, he's an amazing person. One of them is pretty amazing, and he's definitely all about the community. They have the Gorilla Chronicles, the Silverback Chronicles
Oh,
on
yeah,
podcasts themselves.
great.
Yeah. And so they were on my podcast, actually. They're pretty good guys.
Good guy.
Yeah, they're good guys. And so I'm just happy that you get to come on my platform and we have the discussion about the amazing city of Baltimore, but also the challenges of the broken system that's affected our neighborhoods, that affected our schools, the economic flow that continues to fail, and then the generational curses that need to be broken. I mean, when you look about decades about how Baltimore, it's an amazing city, but what's put in front of people that's outside of Baltimore is just, the destruction, the corruption, the drugs, the poverty, the brokenness of the Black families and Black communities. And me now, so I'm originally from Miami, Florida. And when you say the bottom, I can relate to that because in Miami, Florida, I come from the bottom. We call where I come from the bottom. And that's in the 3.
It's a bottoms everywhere, I feel like. Because
Yeah.
I was talking to some homies from Shreveport, Louisiana, who was big fans of my work, and they were like, "Yo, we from a neighborhood called the Bottoms out in Shreveport." You know what I'm
Yeah.
like? And then I was talking to some people from like the lower part of New York, Harlem, the lower part of Harlem, like right before you get to Manhattan, and they like, "Oh yeah, East Side down bottom." So it's like, and then you
It's,
telling me about Miami, so everybody.
yeah. Yeah, I come from Richmond Heights, 305, way down at the bottom. So I can relate to like how it is at the bottom, right? But I want you to explain. I've been working in Baltimore for 8 years. I now live in Baltimore, and we love Baltimore. I moved here after my son went to college at Eastern Shores
Okay.
and HBCU, and he's majoring in marine biology, freshman. And so I have a 12-year-old, and so me and my 12-year-old was like, let's move back, let's move closer to your job. You always in Baltimore, you shop in Baltimore, you party in Baltimore, you have friends in Baltimore. You might as well move to Baltimore. So we'll get into that discussion how I got from where I was to here in Baltimore to reside. But I am always amazed that Baltimore is a city of neighborhoods, right? But you're from East Baltimore. Could you tell us about the difference between East Baltimore and West Baltimore? That's literally like it's like separated by a bridge, but it's so different from east to west. Could you tell us about growing up in East Baltimore and how it's so different from West Baltimore?
So when I write about it, a lot of times I'm writing to poke fun at people who are directly connected to these environments. If I'm pulling back, like if you pull all the way back, East Baltimore and West Baltimore is like the same thing. Culturally, people might say West Baltimore guys tend to be more flashy.
Yeah.
West Baltimore people tend to be more flashy. East Baltimore people tend to be more grimy, a little dirty, some dirt under our fingernails and all that. But in actuality, like the only thing that separates us is just a public transportation system that that needs to be invested in. Something that Governor Moore was talking about, really putting the focus on during his tenure. So
Yeah.
I've been outside for like, and when I say outside, like I jumped off the porch early. So like I've had
Hmm.
Cherry Hill, had friends in West Baltimore. I had friends out in the county. Like I was getting around to these different places and seeing people. So, you know, we always joke about East Side this and West Side that for fun, but in actuality, if you outside, the homies are everywhere. So it's not like
Yeah.
but so it's more like an internal, like a funny thing. So if I'm at so I know if I put that in a book, a Baltimore City Public School student from West Baltimore is going to read it something and they're going to laugh. An East
They're gonna
Baltimore
laugh at it. Yeah.
student is going to read it and laugh. Now, the person in Ohio might not know what I'm talking about.
They don't know what you're talking about.
It's different. But people who are directly connected to this story, they're little gems that I try to sprinkle in there to let them know
Yeah.
and they deserve to laugh and have fun and poke fun at all of this stuff.
And I see that I like I said, I've been working in the streets of Baltimore for 8 years and now living here, and I probably grow old here. So I definitely see like the difference. And I have friends on the east side. I live on the west side. So and so I got my first job on the west side of Baltimore. But my daughter goes to my daughter goes to school on the east side of Baltimore. So I definitely see the difference, and I see the comedy and the humor in your stories, and that's pretty cool. So let's talk about one of your books that I actually finished reading. I thought it was really enjoyable, and it was the B side of Living and Dying in America. You discussed your journey of how you got here today, and I think you touched every part of a young black man that hasn't. A lot of young black men in Baltimore have the story that you have. Um, could you tell the audience like what it was like being a black man in Baltimore, especially at the age you were, the when you lost your brother, your friends, and you had to go into the streets to make money. Tell me about that journey real shortly and how you got to where you are today, and do you feel like did you have to go down that road to get where you're at now?
Yes and no. I think I don't. I definitely. I don't think my story is special at all, really, until you get to the end.
Hmm.
I wasn't the best student. I wasn't smartest kid in class. I wasn't the coolest guy in the street. I wasn't like, no one said, "Oh my God, he's gifted. He's anointed.
Right, right.
He's special." I was like a regular kid that been through like a lot of regular situations, and honestly, I think that's the most powerful element to my story. When I'm talking to young people about growing up in East Baltimore, about seeing the drug trade, about being a part of the drug trade, about hating the situations I was in, the situations I put myself in, and then the situations I worked hard to not just pull myself but other people out of, is that I'm not doing this as some person with a mission or some like corny youth pastor. I'm just a regular dude that that made some mistakes and then spent a whole lot of time trying to make right on some of those things just
Hmm.
um, through literacy, through school visits, through teaching writing workshops, through running like going to jails and working in different reading programs and
Hmm.
that. So that's but if I put the whole experience into a nutshell to answer the question, I would say it's all policy. Everything is policy. It's just
Hmm.
policy. Like
Hmm.
I grew up the way I grew up, and I come from where I come from because of policy.
Right.
I would not have been in East Baltimore. I would not have been on Robinson Street. I wouldn't be, the different good friends and family members in Capitol Hill and Latrobe and Somerset and Douglas, all the different housing projects. Like I would never have friends and connections in these different places or experiences in any of these different places if FDR didn't sign the GI Bill. Because
Right. 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 Right.
signs the GI Bill, and that basically planted the seeds for what contemporary urban America looks like. He signs that bill that says if you fight in World War II, you were guaranteed a mortgage and a college education, right? So white people fought in the war, and they were able to use those mortgages and they built the suburbs. They all came home and bought houses, right? This
Mhm.
is the foundation of the wealth gap of how America looks. Black people
Mhm.
are supposed to be guaranteed those same mortgages, but the banks wouldn't loan them, wouldn't give them the loans or guarantee them because they were black, even though they
Right.
were just like white people. So
Right.
what was the constellation prize? The projects, right? So you build up these projects in these urban areas that surround these housing projects, and that's the reality that I'm born into in the early '80s. This is from something stemming from way back then. Um, some of my white friends and peers talk about how their parents were able to utilize the money from their grandparents' houses, from houses they inherited, because
Mhm. Mhm.
to be able to help them pay for college and things like that, right? And we didn't have that, so we kind of get what we get. So it's all like a policy thing.
So in the GI Bill, we're discussing the GI Bill. Correct. So
Yeah,
I didn't, for the record, I was a military spouse. We didn't get none of that. I didn't benefit anything from the GI Bill. So I don't, and I was a military spouse. Like I didn't benefit.
you don't benefit when you're supposed to benefit. Or how?
So what they would say is, how they would do it is like, oh, you can get the GI Bill, you can benefit it from education, but you gotta major in this. So it's like, if you do this, then we'll give you the money. But if you go outside of those majors or outside of those jobs, you don't get the money. You see what I'm saying? So there's things that they didn't put in there that could not benefit people like myself. So it was kind of like we could only like benefit from it for like if we wanted to be a nurse, or uh where it was high, you know, it was a high demand for that job. That's how we could benefit from it. So I think a lot of the spouses didn't get the benefit from what the soldiers did, you know what I'm saying? And so that's just my personal experience with the GI Bill. I can understand how you guys, if I didn't get it, I dang sure know y'all didn't get it. And and I was part of that system. And so it definitely was not deviated correctly or distributed fairly. So they had the loopholes in there.
So that's how we end up in a city on top of each other, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
like my whole experience wasn't bad and it wasn't dark. It was some good times and some good things too. It was a colorful mix, but
Yeah.
I try to spend a lot of the time, especially when you get the Black Boy Smile, talking about that.
And I know, like, when I read your stories, I see the good times, like how you can sit on that, that those the the stairs with your friends that are still there, and y'all laugh about those things. I see that you're very good in basketball, and so that was something that brought you guys together in a huge way.
So,
Yeah.
like I'm not as good as like a somebody who has a shot at being pro, but I'm like better than like regular people. So if somebody like works at UPS or something, I can probably beat them. But like if they like work as like a personal trainer, I probably can't beat them.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Like, so when we talk about you also discussed, you said something in your book about protest, right? And that we have to go further than protesting. Like, we just can't stop there, right? And you sometimes you feel like your voice is not enough. Like, it doesn't move the needle. Why do you feel like that? And let's talk about how your voice can move the needle, the support you need for your voice to move the needle, because your book resonates with a lot of people in Baltimore. I think that's what's special, that they can actually say, "Dang, that's me," or you have a friend that can resonate with that book. So why do you feel like when your voice, does it even matter? And why do you feel like protests, we have to go further than that?
But I mean, if you look at how long we've been protesting, and just go back to 100 years of protests, and then look at the results. Look at where we are. If you feel like you're in a place where you're experiencing equality, you feel like people are celebrating you as a thinker, celebrating your womanhood, celebrating you as a black person. You feel like you get fair treatment everywhere you go. then you can make the argument and say, hey, protesting is pretty great. But if you can't say that, if you can't say that sexism, racism, and homophobia, these different things that oppress people, if you can't sit back and say that these things don't exist anymore, because we've been marching for that stuff for a long time. countless, and again, I'm not even against people who protest, but when I come on my television screen in 2020 and see Mitt Romney marching for George Floyd, I'm like, okay, like,
like, what are we doing?
and again, like I understand why people protest. I understand why people want to get together. I understand why people want to do these things to fight the system. Like, I understand these things. But something that I do as an artist and I'm just gonna give you like the and this is I never really did this before, but it's just kind of funny. But it's like some basic lessons to understand why I do what I do. Is I just take ideas that people are comfortable with, and then I just argue the other side. This is all I really do, just argue the other side, because nothing is simple. Nothing is black and white.
Nothing's black and white. No, exactly.
Oh, the protest was so powerful. It is my job to say, powerful how? So
how?
I wrote.
Where did we change from here to there? Like, what changed?
I haven't read the B side in maybe like 5 years or something. Like, I honestly don't even know.
Dang. So I'm like way behind. Yo, don't pull my cards like that.
These things, once you write them, they're not yours anymore. It belongs to whoever.
Are you serious?
Once you write it, it's just kind of book number 8 for me comes out this year.
Okay, so I'm like behind. So now I got to keep reading, which is fine with me.
And I say all that to say this. I don't know if I wrote this in the B side or not, but I may have written about this in the B side. But it was like a young homie that was calling me to come to the protest, and I was like, "Yo, like, I'm teaching writing programs, and I'm helping young people fall in love with literature, which helps them learn how to think critically, which helps them make good decisions. Which means when they get an opportunity to pick up a gun or to pick up an application, they're going to be able to think and say, yo." These are the things that can happen if I pick up that gun. Maybe I should pick up that application. Maybe I should learn that trade before I try to do this street stuff, because I'm thinking critically and I'm literally analyzing all of the different things that can happen to me if I pick up this pistol. So this is where I'm at with it. And he's talking about, all right, fuck all that. We're going to go lay down in the street and block traffic. And I'm like
what?
I'm like, bro, like, you're going to, okay. And then I had to pull back, because I always pull back. And I say, all right, so look at it like this. If you lay down in traffic, right, you're not hurting people with careers. You're not hurting people with money, because people with money kind of don't really like have to be anywhere. No. The only people who really, really rely on traffic is working people who have to take that exit to get to that Walmart or that Amazon or that factory or that whatever's off that exit. You are hurting them, because they can't get where they need to go. The person with money is going to, I'm not even a rich guy, but if somebody was blocking traffic and I'm on my way to teach, I'm just going to hop on the internet and say, hey, I was trying to come teach you guys, but there's a group of people lying in the middle of the street. So I'm going to go home and
go remote.
I'm going to watch Power or some shit.
Let's fast forward it then, right? Let's talk about gentrification, which is happening right now. While we're on this podcast, gentrification is happening everywhere in Baltimore. I know what that looks like from Miami. When you express like Baltimore doesn't look like it used to look. Like, this doesn't look like home to you, right? When I go back to home to Miami, people be like, why don't you go back to Miami? Because it doesn't look like I remember. Like, everything looks different. It's gentrified, right? Like, they have pushed all the Black people out and all the culture out. And now it's this, right? It's made for tourism. So it doesn't look like what I remember. And you made a quote saying that, which I love, and I'm going to actually keep in my pocket, It's like the Ethiopian proverb. It's when spiders unite and they can, yep, they can tie up the lion. Do you feel like we're the spiders and the developers are the lion, or is other way around? Because right now, if we don't put the right people in office, if the people in our communities don't like raise their voices, they will be the ones that they'll be the lions and the developer be the spiders, right? So it kind of reverses. We have the power to make that narrative whatever we like. Gentrification is very real. And how do you feel about that right now?
There's so much like there's so much research on like you know, and this is a conversation I wrote about. I definitely wrote about on the B side. That book came out in I want to say 2015, right? So
And it's still happening now.
2015. So you can only imagine how much those numbers
Has
have
happened.
been.
Correct.
Like over 20,000 like displaced families and like over 80,000 displaced
Mm-hmm.
people, and that
Mm-hmm.
we saw a whole lot of neighborhoods bulldozed and complexes
Mm-hmm.
bulldozed and taken down since then. And what I will say is, it's funny because we're from these places. We create the culture. We make it cool. We make it beautiful. Other people see it, they suck it up, absorb it, and they take it. And that's the same thing with everything. You see a brand like Balenciaga, and you see like they'll have like some busted up shoes, and it's like because they saw some poor black person with busted up shoes who threw it on the overcoat and the jeans and cuffed them up and wore it with pride, and they made it look like something that's fashion. Or we traveling for basketball when we young, and some of us didn't really have money for suitcases, so we throwing our clothes in the trash bag. And the big fashion brands were like, "Yo, why are these kids at the airport with trash bags? Oh, we're gonna make that luxury design it."
Right.
And I'm not even trying to be funny, but like mismatched shoestrings is not, we didn't do it to be cool.
That's nothing new. That's because that's what we had.
Yeah, we maybe we didn't have shoestrings. Maybe we had to borrow from another shoe. Maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Maybe we knew we weren't going to get new shoes, so we had to put the other colors in there to switch it up to make something new. But it's all out of necessity, and people, all this ties into gentrification and how culture is cultivated and built. We do these things. We create this language. You know what I'm saying? Like we create this language, and it's moving faster now because this stuff is online. So you got some kids doing a dance in West Baltimore, the Park Heights strut, and then immediately it becomes the viral TikTok sensation, and then it turns into you go to a party full of people far removed from that community, and they own that dance. They trademarked it. They made merch. They figured out a way to monetize off of it. And I'm not saying that somebody did that with that dance, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. We create culture, and then Christopher Columbus comes in and claims it as their own, and that's the lion. The people who are able to co-opt and monetize off of coolness they didn't create, they're the lion, and they will forever be the lion. When talking about the history of this country, and I don't even know if we have the resources or the bandwidth to unite like those fighters and tie down anything because it's moving.
You don't think so? You really don't think so?
I don't know. I mean, I would like to think so. And I think like, so I'll say this. We do it in small pockets, right? Like you have a podcast and, like if anybody, you have a show, and if anybody has a show and they trying to, they want to create content and I can help out. Especially when they look like me, I'm on that. I don't be doing interviews like that no more. Like I interview people, I write, and I just stay in the house. Like I literally don't go nowhere. I don't do interviews, but if I can help people, I try my best to help and show love when I can. So that's like a connection within the art community and within the creative community where we're tying those webs together. Now, how does that translate to bigger people? Maybe somebody else will hear this and see it, and they'll try to do the same thing too. So we see small little pockets of change around, but that whole big unifying piece, I don't know.
So I will say, so I'm glad you made that point, right? So we'll get into one, my podcast, right? How I came to be. And then like how you were like, oh yeah, I'll be on your pod. One, I was just like, oh my God, he's going to be on my podcast. I'm honored, right? I've been doing the podcast for 2 years, right? But I did this podcast to make a change. And that change created a bigger change, right? And I really feel like Baltimore is so good at like loyalty, right? That loyalty can sink them, but it's still loyal, right? They don't, because of the loyalty, it kind of like handicaps us, right? So when you say, you had said in another book that I'm reading, a seat at the table, right? So when I can relate with the seat at the table, right? So I ran for state delegate. I was the first Black woman to race for state delegate in Frederick, Maryland. The first Black woman. I'm not from Frederick, but I'm the first Black woman. There's a lot of Black women in Frederick.
Did you win?
And I lost by 1,000 votes. It was my first race, and a white woman came in that was not from Frederick.
I'll run again?
Yes.
Okay.
See how the picture changes. I am. I think people like yourself, Ernest Shaw,
God, man.
that came on my show. You guys are so powerful. I think
No,
Baltimore's.
I know Ernest before I started writing.
Yeah, Baltimore has powerful people that can be the spider. They just need to unite together, right? And I really feel like Baltimore is in the perfect spot to do that. They're in the perfect position because yes, gentrification is happening, but we can also say that we can make it work in our benefits. It don't have to work for the white man all the time, right? And so when you say that you felt like you didn't feel comfortable in that room, now you are who you are now. Do you feel like you made a seat at the table or you created your own table?
I definitely have my own table, and
Yes.
I don't seek comfort anymore. Like I just don't care. You know,
Yes.
like I don't. I used to think that So when I came into this, I used to think that I would get to certain rooms and certain situations, and it would be like this whole instant wave of us connecting and respecting
Yeah.
and love. And now I've been at this long enough to know that nobody really gives a shit. So you get in there, you lock in with your people.
Yeah.
People who not your people, it's totally good. They don't have to be your people. They can be
They don't have to be your people.
whoever they want to be. I do my job. I get the fuck out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's how I had one person to tell me, Terrell, why do you want to be at the table when you can create your own table? You're right. I can't create my own table. And I did that, right? I created my own table. I had people asking me to be on my podcast. I ran for office. People know me now. A lot of people know me. They're very upset that I left Frederick and I did not run again. I left Frederick for my own personal reasons. But it was just like I was called that little Black girl, go sit in this corner. How dare you do that? I had the racism thrown at me. And sometimes I didn't feel comfortable in those rooms. But now I'm at a point where, nah, I did this. Like I can do that again. And like you said, you do what you got to do. You connect with the people, you get in and you get out. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I just don't want to get in and get out. I want to build off of that and say, nah, I can be at the table. You can be at the table. All of us can be at the table, and let's make it better. Because I've seen both sides of the coin, right? You just sell the drugs, things like that. You ran in with the law. I got into Baltimore because of reentry. So it's like, how are we going to leverage that? You got to leverage it. And I think that now you just have to have the right people at the table to leverage it, right? So and so I'm glad that you feel like now you can you got the table. I'm happy about that. So you talked about long time ago about education. You talked about it then, and we're still having issues about education now, right? How do you think you're powerful in that? And how can Baltimore change that? Because now I have a daughter in the Baltimore school. She goes to a charter school. But we have more charter schools and private schools than we should because our public schools are terrible. How do you feel about that, and how can we change that?
It's still a difficult conversation because it's like you want your kids to be competitive. You want your kids to be able to get um, the information they need to be able to excel on the next level. And bigger, more than anything, you want them to be inspired. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and again, like when we have these conversations, like people look at me like I'm crazy because I think we need to rethink education just in general. I don't think we're doing it right. We group kids based on age. I always hung out with older people. We make kids go to school in the daytime. My brain don't start working until like 7 o'clock at night.
What time do
Like
you think we should go to school?
the kids who learn better at night should go to school at night. I think the kids who
Okay.
learn day should go to school at day. I think we should invest way more in it. I don't think we invest enough in education. I think argument, not an argument, but a disagreement that my wife and I had is she does well in smaller classrooms throughout her life. I excel in groups. I like to be in the middle of 50 people. I love packed classrooms. I love it.
Right.
Love to fight over who's going to get to speak, and I love that. That's that energy. I feed off of that energy. I work better in the midst of chaos than a small group of people who because I know if I sit in a corner, I'm gonna meet a whole different group of people I didn't meet when I sat in that corner or when I sat in the front. Like I know I'm gonna be able to move around that room and get what energy that I need. So it's like different learning styles. Some people are kinesthetic, some people are auditory, some people are visual. However, some teachers try to differentiate and incorporate these things, but most people, not most, but a lot of teachers who um, aren't given the luxury of time or the appropriate resources needed to be able to create these different types of learning experiences have to try to group everybody together and get them on the same wave. And then you wonder why some people excel and some people fall. It's like it's almost like a no-brainer. And thinking people know this, yet we do nothing about it. So it's like, so what do you say? You say, wow, I know this, but am I going to go try to be a top ranking person in education reform? No. Am I going to go work in the school system and try to bring change from the inside? No. I'm going to take my resources and customize my daughter's experience. And that's what it turns into. It turns into that.
So how can you change that though? Because it's got to start from somewhere, right? You say we. What do you mean by we? What do you mean? Like we could be the community, it could be the churches, it could be the politicians. Like how do we mend those pieces together?
When I say
In
we,
Baltimore.
when I say we, like we group kids, or we expect everybody to learn during the daytime, or we group by age. I'm basically talking about society and the structures that have been
Okay.
long before I was born. This is how we
Okay.
do education. We do education Monday through Friday. We tell you that Shakespeare is the shit. We tell you
Right.
that is the worst thing you can do. We tell you that your vote matters. Like these are like we tell you these basic things that we want you to subscribe to as a society because we need you to buy into these things so that society can continue to function. And I'm just not that kind of thinker. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I also don't accept everything that's handed to me because I know off of personal experience where I excel and where I struggle. And I've seen other people excel in things that I have no interest in excelling in. I see other people struggling things that come very easy to me. So I understand that we're all different. And I'm recognizing that when I talk about pedagogy, when I talk about structure, when I talk about the things that work for me, like I didn't, I wasn't good at math until I learned that, that math comes with logic. There's math logic. There's logic. There's basic logic that says when you see these signs, when you see these formulas, when you see these different equations, you're supposed to perform this, this, and that, because this is a logical thing to do when you're presented with this, right? And it wasn't taught to me like that. It was taught these are the rules. showing your work, blah 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 blah. But it wasn't like really. It wasn't like a, if you touch your hand and you get burnt, it wasn't. It wasn't taught to me like that. But I'm on a car crossing. Yeah, yeah. You can have one, but drink some water too. Sorry. Certain things. There's certain things that I didn't necessarily get, and there's certain things that I didn't get. So and there's certain things that I would want my child to get, and you want it for the collective. And when you have resources, you donate and you advocate and you push towards the collective, but you have to get in a situation to do so. How do you get in that situation? Because most black people who are, I hate speaking so general. A lot of black people who find success, they're not just successful for themselves. They're successful for the aunt, for the grandma, for the cousin.
Right.
You got 10 for every successful black public figure. You got like 20, 30 people attached to them. So they're not. Right. So they 50, 100, 200, 300, $400,000 is like they 500,000 is really like 70,000, which is like somebody regular type income or whatever at some type of job. It's not. The math is not the same. We got different equations. So it's like you have this success and you have these resources, but it's divided in the most disrespectful way possible. And then you get pushed to the front and say, okay, now go change the world. And so it's right. It's like a mind fuck.
I like that analogy. So what are you doing now? You're a professor. Are you mentoring kids? What are you doing now to impact the community and young minds? Because that's what's important.
I'm a professor as a profession because I care about writing and I care about thought. I don't mentor young kids anymore. I mentor young artists who mentor young kids.
Okay.
So I can so instead of me directly having relationships with 10 young people, I can mentor 10 artists who can all go mentor 10 people. So now I can take some of the skills that I've learned and some of the things that work, and I can help those skills reach way more people just by sharing my skills with other people. So I kind of do it like that. And I don't do school visits as much anymore because it's just been weird after the pandemic. But I'm gonna write like 2 new books that I can put in schools so that I can have some new stuff to go into the schools with and talk to kids about writing and stuff like that.
Now, and so you have a podcast as well, right? Do you interview people?
And it's not really a podcast. It's
not really a podcast. It's like what is it?
Well, it's just like it's an online show. So it's like we call it podcast because we don't stream the audio.
Right.
Yeah, we don't stream the audio. So it's just it's like a show. And it's not my show. I'm just one of the hosts on the show.
You do a good job at it.
We just had we had one to come out today. I just interviewed Lisa Ann Walters from Abbott Elementary.
I know. I love that show. My daughter, 12-year-old, she loves that show. And so we watch it all the time. Now, you did talk about the show that the HBO series that you brought out, Not in Our City or In Our City. We own this city. We own this city, about law enforcement in Baltimore. Law enforcement is still a huge topic across the nation, like not just in Baltimore, across the nation, right? And I want to get your views on law enforcement. I mean, you work with some cool officers, so we have some great officers out there. But then let's talk about the other side of that and how it's still affecting the Black communities and the streets of Baltimore.
Somebody. So I'm working on a documentary, right? And then researching the documentary, I had to reach out to this police officer from like 98, like the 80s. He may be retired in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. Like, man, I wanted to meet you since 2013, 2014. And I'm like, me? He was like, yeah. So what you want to meet me for? He said, because you hate police.
Wait, do you get that a lot?
I get it more. I get it more. Get it more than I should because I don't think. And I explained this to him, and he has a better understanding of my stance and my perspective. And I was like, well, let me enlighten you a little bit more. Let me tell you a whole story. I hate a lot of doctors. I hate a lot of city workers. I hate a lot of trash people. I hate a whole lot of UPS drivers. I definitely hate the fucking post office. Like, so if you wanna like tell a whole story, tell the whole story. He got a kick out of that. But then I said, so again, you gotta pull back a bit. Just because you tell the whole truth doesn't mean you have hate for a person or individual, even a profession. My problem is with systems and how they function. I am a systems guy. I am a numbers guy. I don't like how certain systems function, and I have the stats and the math and the numbers to back it up to prove it. That has nothing to do with you as a person. You can say that like, and this is now I'm just replaying our conversation. I said, look at it like this. You are a DVD that works. I'm reaching out to you because you did some stuff that actually worked. So you're a DVD player that worked. Now let me stick you in this DVD player that I just broke in half. You understand? Yeah. It has nothing to do with you as an individual or a person, nothing to do with your belief system, everything to do with a broken system. So if somebody's speaking bad about a system, like I've heard like people say like, like Blue Lives Matter. And that is literally like the definition of you just not paying attention. You can't be a blue light. You're not a spark. It's literally a job. You can quit the job. You can quit.
Right. You can quit the job. I can't quit being black.
You can't quit being black. You can't quit being a woman. It's very, very hard to escape poverty. Social mobility doesn't happen in this country. It's like an 80 to 90% chance you only go as far as your parents. It doesn't happen. It's the biggest facade and the biggest trick that America played on people. This is why poor white people hated slaves and thought they were better than slaves, when in actuality, they were in the same economic and financial...
economic, exactly.
Wasn't that they weren't captured and they weren't being like beaten and raped and sold off and things like that, but they had the same amount of opportunity for progression, which was none. You were not going to... But yet, because you don't got that skin and and policies more fair to you, you think you're better. And it's America wouldn't be America without playing these kinds of tricks. So there's a certain segment of people who, anyway, long story short, I have a problem with systems. I love people maybe even more than I should love people. I mean, the reason why I say maybe more than I should love people is because people will be a part of, or they'll turn a blind eye to the flaws that exist within the systems that are in front of them and try to shield themselves with things like, oh, you hate us. And it's like, dog, I don't even think about you. Like, I don't even think about you. Like,
so I'm glad that we're having this discussion, right? Because after reading the books, I told my partner, like, dang, he hates cops. He might hate cops. And I'm like, he might hate the system. I cannot imagine him hating a person. He might hate the system, that it's within.
I hate systems. I don't like flawed systems. So if you look at Stockton First in New York, and you wonder why the bulk of people who are Stockton First were Black and Latino, and Columbia students who probably on record get way more drugs.
Right.
And they're right up in Harlem.
They didn't say the same thing.
It's a system that's saying it is okay to target this neighborhood and in this neighborhood. So this is a high crime area. So we're going to target the high crime area. The high crime area is this neighborhood. We're targeting these people. And the only reason why this is a high crime area is then you bring in the systemic reasons, and then it becomes a system problem.
So let's talk about the system. A lot of people play a part in that system. You have your politicians that play a part in that system. You have the government that plays a part of that system. You have the agency that plays a part of that system. You have some of the community people that play a part of that system. How do you break down that system to say, okay, this is the only way this is going to get better if we break this one down, change this, change that? Have you had that discussion with your friends or community people or the people that you influence? Do you have that discussion about how that can be changed? The reason why I say this, right? So let's talk about GTF. Let's use them, for example, just for the baseline. Now, when you think about those, that was a while back, right? But then you have now where you have officers, and this is a true story, officers that only been in law enforcement for 3 years, and now they're on a task force. How does that happen? You have a 23-year-old officer that's been an officer only 3 years on a task force. And most of the task force in the agency are white men. Okay? And then those 23-year-olds, they are trained to kick down doors, not community policing, not patrolling, kick down doors because they've only been in for 3 years and they're now part of a task force. Those 23-year-olds are going to become sergeants, lieutenants very quickly. And now that's all they know. You are now creating a monster, correct? That system that lets that happen. How did that stop, right? We've got to start questioning the internal part of saying, how can this stop? You got to start questioning the politicians and say, how can we make a policy that says they only can be in the force, they got to be in the force at least 5 years to join a task force?
Well, that's because policing is not the problem.
It's not the problem.
The reason why we're policing. That's the problem. It don't matter for me, and I'm not a cop. I don't know how long somebody's supposed to be somewhere before they join. I would imagine that you would like somebody to have a certain amount of knowledge.
Exactly.
Yes. To roam around the city and do what they want. But I'm saying that the problem is, okay, and just indulge me for a second. We need to abolish guns. That's the problem.
Okay.
One of the problems is America has consistently proved that it is not a responsible enough nation for firearms.
Okay.
I know, and I've written about this. I've got death threats, and people put pictures of my house on the internet. all of these things.
I'm sorry.
People love their guns. They
do.
Love their guns. They love their guns more than they love their spouses and children, right? So people love their guns, right? So that's one thing. Another thing, how we punish, or if we should be punishing the way we punish in general, right? What do we choose to legalize, and what do we choose to, when I was a little kid, smoking that weed was the devil. Now everybody's open to, the dispensaries and.
Are you opposed to, are you against that?
What, smoking weed?
Opposed to the dispensaries.
I'm opposed to people in the community, people who've done present time behind it, people who love their culture not getting a chance to participate.
That is the fact.
That's what I'm opposed to the fact that there's people sitting in jail right now for selling weed while they build.
And then you got the white man making millions of dollars off of it.
So I'm opposed to that. So, drugs, crack, cocaine, heroin, whatever, these things are illegal. When they're illegal, you create underground economy for it because we can send people to the moon, but we can't stop a boat from Colombia. That's another story. So it's gonna get in there, right? It's gonna get in there, right? So, why don't we have zones where that stuff is tolerated? Why don't we have zones where that stuff is regulated, and you have clean needles, and you have clean places to do it, and you have barriers and whatever agency you want to create set up to watch over that area to make sure that nothing chaotic is happening. No, we mix these people in who do these things in with everybody else, and then we say, oh, send the cops out there, and then it's chaos. When it's literally ways to control the chaos, but we don't want to control the chaos because we need the chaos because the chaos is very lucrative.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about people making money off of people's struggle and pain, you see it every day. Like, people got to understand. They'll say, oh, we want this gone. No, you don't. If it's gone, you make no money. Like the nonprofit, we want to fix it. No, you don't. You don't make no money if you fix it.
So that's all I'm saying.
So the system, so I see what you're saying. So what can we do about that? Like, if you're saying, okay, let's regulate, people still making their money off of people getting high, people still making their money off of, like, how there's got to be a way to say, okay, enough is enough, right? We can't do this anymore. You got to find a way to make your money somewhere else. We got to get these people clean. We got to get these people into rehab. We have to get these people.
I have the most money, and I've figured out different ways to benefit from this. Or I subscribe to a mindset that says how we do things is the right way to do things, and even though I have the power to change these things, I'm not going to do it. How does it? I mean, how does it change? Right? So again, you cities hire whatever new police budget, $500 million, whatever dollars. We're going to push this initiative to hire double police, whatever. And it's like, since when was having all these police to answer to social issues? It doesn't make sense. You put a band-aid on the broken neck. It doesn't really work like that. So now you're putting pressure on, these people who are saying, oh, I can be a cop. All I got to do is run a mile in 20 minutes and be able to do some push-ups, and I can get a gun and the ability to take somebody's freedom or their life, right? You can have whatever qualifications you need to get this position. Now you putting the pressures of society on these people, and you're asking them to go out and problem solve. A lot of times with people who they don't really have anything culturally, they don't have any culture.
And that goes back to my point I was making earlier.
And then now I'm a spectator because I've made a mistake and lived long enough to have some insight
right.
from being in one space to being in a different space. And now it's like, and I'm just telling the truth. And and sometimes people interpret it as if like I'm gonna have a picket sign and march in front of the precinct. I'll bet you every last dollar you ever made in your life, you'll never see that. That's just not.
I don't think I will ever see you doing that.
I do events. Sometimes I do events that's crowded, and I'm in different cities, and they send me police escorts, they send me security, they send me, you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes when I'm on, especially when I'm doing TV stuff, sometimes they give me like off-duty cops that's like
really.
Yeah, they do that all the time, and we joke about this stuff all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because people are. This isn't a woman or a man that dreamt of oppressing people that look like me. This is somebody that said it's a job with benefits, and
right.
and I get to ride around all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we miss that. So when we have conversations about police shootings and all this stuff, the problem is that there's been a cop narrative in this country for so long that has been a polar opposite of the reality of so many people. And if you speak on the cop narrative versus people's realities that have been on the other side, then it creates more conflict, and it creates who likes who and who doesn't like what. And
right.
Again, if you know me at the core, I don't really like anybody. But if I had to have dinner with somebody from the IRS or somebody that was a cop, I'm choosing a cop.
Good for you. You take my money.
You'll take my money. But if the cop has a gun.
I like that. I'm really excited to see what you're going to be doing next in the community. So what are you working on right now?
I'm working on an HBO film that's actually another kind of story. It's not green lit yet. But we're in the early development stages. I just co-wrote a book with Mike Africa about the move bombing that happened in 1985. Like the only time in history, a residential neighborhood was literally blown up. from orders given by Wilson Good, who was Philly's first
Mm-hmm.
player. So I just co-wrote his book. I'm just writing, and just trying to learn as much as I can learn and think as much as I can think, and just really, really enjoying being wrong at times. I like to be wrong because it gives me a chance to learn and grow
Yeah.
at
So
a high.
you have anything to ask me? Because you do these, you're pretty sharp. So I don't. Do you have anything to ask me? I don't give a lot of people this opportunity.
What's your why? Why do you do any of this?
My why is public service. I am a huge public service person. I believe in the impact that voices and people can make uh, when they're in the trenches, when they're in the thick of it. And those are the ones that make real change, right? And so that is my why. I love to see people rise above oppression, disparities, things like that. Um, and I think that was embedded in me from being a military child to a military spouse, and and now just I'm always been public service for me. So my why is just to change the world. My favorite cartoon was Pinky and the Brain. So and if you were Pinky and the Brain, like, what are you gonna do? Take over the world. So it's like,
World.
that was my inspiration. So simple. So my why has always been like, I want to be the one to be in the room. Like you always say, like, I want to know why you made that decision and how your decision is affecting that person and that person and that person. And you make these decisions, but it doesn't affect you. How does that work? So I I always want to know. So that's my why. I hope I answered it for you.
Absolutely. I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, you know, I guess to answer your big question, but the theme of it all is just work really hard at what you do, become good enough to put your people on, and then
Yeah.
challenge them with putting some people on. If you're doing that,
Yeah.
we're moving in the right direction.
So I always ask my guests two questions. The first question is there an advice that you wish you have taken and took back in your day that you didn't take and that you wish you would have took?
Yeah, a lot of people around me used to always tell me to read, and but they never really put it in context for me. They never told me what kind of thinker I could grow into and the power I could have if I wasn't such an idiot. So I wish I would have read when people told me to read when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. And what quote would you like to share was your favorite quote and that you live by? What was your favorite quote?
When you get give, when you learn, teach by Angela.
Yeah, I know somebody else that did that one cool too. That's a good one. Well, I know you have a beautiful daughter, and so she has a cool dad and a cool. You have a beautiful wife and she has a cool mom, and